friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm guest designing with Write at Home, and I'm going to be making a card using their Anemones stamp set. And I'll also be using the Wildflower 6x6 by Kaisercraft. I'm going to be stamping and heat embossing on vellum today, so I'm going to go ahead and take a sheet of that I've cut down and just put that in my mini MISTI. And then I'm going to go ahead and prep that vellum with my EK Success powder tool. And I'm just making sure to coat that very well, especially over the places where I had to touch it with my fingertips. Then I'm going to grab my Versamark ink pad. It's just a sticky ink that is great for heat embossing. And I'm going to go ahead and ink up the images that I want to stamp out. I had to adjust my little magnet there, but then I can press that down into place and pull that sheet of vellum out. Then I'm going to grab some white embossing powder. My go-to is the Hero Arts Detail White, although I have heard that the new Lawn Fawn White is very similar. And I'm just going to coat all of my images with a good layer of that embossing powder. Then I just like to flip that over and tap the back with my spoon or a finger and just make sure I don't have any little stray embossing flakes where I don't want them. And then I'll grab my heat tool and just go ahead and melt all that embossing powder, which is always so fun to watch happen. It's kind of like magic. So I actually stamped out 4 extra flowers just for good measure. I wasn't sure how many I was going to need on the card, but I'm just doing the 2 sets of leaves because I am going to cut those up later. So now I'm just going to take the little inside centers of these flowers and I'll ink those up with some more Versamark ink and repeat the process of just coating them with the embossing powder and then heat setting that with my heat tool. This time I'm going to bring in the heat from the underside just to try to minimize the warping. And once I'm done with that, I'll be left with 4 flowers, 3 of each design, and the 2 leaf clusters. So I'm going to actually flip these over to the back side, and then to make it easier I decided to just go ahead and cut them smaller. I did do 2 off camera just to kind of practice the color palette that I wanted to use, and I will be using some Lawn Fawn ink. This is the Guava and the Peachy Keen. So I'm just taking an ink blender that you would normally use for distress inks, and I'm dipping that into the lighter of the 2 colors first because I just wanted to use the one foam. So I'm not going to have to worry about transferring any color because I went into the lighter of the 2, the Peachy Keen first, and now I'm going into the Guava and just sponging that color onto the back side. Just really quick and easy. And then I'll go ahead and let these dry for a bit. And then you can see from the other side it is quite a bit lighter, but once you put that onto some cardstock or some pattern paper, the color really shows up really beautifully. So I've got my 3 pattern papers that I'm going to be using cut down, and I did give a scalloped border to this white print with the Lawn Fawn stitch scallop border dies. And I'm going to start by adhering this soft pink watercolor piece right flush to the right side of the card. I'm just going to have a little bit of that peeking out, and then I'm going to take the scalloped border with the kind of white embossing on there. It's kind of like a resist pattern on these pattern papers that I'm using, and I'm going to lay that right over top. Then I'm going to take my last piece that has a bit of a floral design and then just a soft aqua watercolor wash for the rest of it, and I'm going to adhere that flush to the left. So I'll have those 3 layers of pattern paper. So I fussy cut all my flowers and leaves, and I know if you watch my videos you know that fussy cutting is not my favorite thing, but it actually wasn't too bad. These flowers are pretty easy to cut out, and there are dies as well, so I just don't have them. But I put on a podcast and I just set to work, and it didn't take too long after all. So I'm just lining those up down the left side of my card and varying the colors and the variety of the 2 different flowers there. And once I know where I want them placed, I can go ahead and add a little bit of glue behind that white center. You do have to be careful with vellum where you're going to put the glue, but since we have that nice white embossed center, it's just worked out perfect. to where to put that Tombow Mono Multi glue there. And I like to use that kind of glue because I can adjust and move them around just a little bit before that glue dries completely until I get them how I want them. You should let the ink dry on the backs of the flowers a little bit longer than I did. It takes longer on the vellum than it would on traditional cardstock. I was impatient to finish the video, so I went ahead, and you'll see that there's a little bit of some pink smears of ink there, but I'm going to cover those up. So I'll set a large acrylic block on top to let these dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and adhere those leaves. Like I said, I did cut them up into a couple different bunches there, and because they are, again, all white embossed on the back, it's easy to just dab a little bit of glue and place those exactly where I want them. And I'll just continue adding leaves here and there wherever I think they look good, and also just covering up any of those little pink smears of ink that I mentioned, so you won't even notice by the time that the card is completely put together. And just put that large acrylic block back there to help everything dry flat. For my sentiment, I'm going to grab the word hello from the Write at Home Fall Sentiment stamp set, and I'm going to ink that up with some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm just going to press that down into place over towards the right hand side, and I'll just ink that up twice to make it nice and bold. Now I made a mistake here when I stamped out my flower. I accidentally shifted the paper before I stamped it down a second time with my MISTI. So to cover that up, I'm just going to add a liner because I definitely don't want to waste this entire card. And then I can restamp my flower with that Peachy Keen ink once again. Now I had considered using the leftover vellum flower in the center, but I decided that it would be a little bit too difficult because it would not adhere completely flat. Plus I kind of wanted my sentiment to go right across it, and it would be hard to stamp on that vellum with the embossing powder. So I stamped Thinking of You in the Memento Tuxedo black right across that flower. And now I just have to decide whether or not I wanted to trim off the side of my cards. I was having a hard time making a decision because I just didn't want to screw it up, honestly, after all that hard work, and it's a decision that you can't go back from. Once it's done, it's done. But in the end, I did decide to go ahead and trim those flowers flush with the side of the card so that it would fit neatly inside an envelope for mailing. And then I did decide that it looked a lot better that way. So it just looks more neat and tidy, I think. So to complete the card, I'm going to add just a couple of embellishments. I'm going to use these little enamel dots from Teresa Collins, and I'm going to use the aqua colored ones here. I tucked the largest of the three under the edge of a flower just to give it a little more lift there, and then added a medium and a small just to create a little trio there, just a visual triangle. And that is going to complete our card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I want to say thank you to Nicole of Write at Home for inviting me to guest design with them this month. And if you're interested in any of the products that I've used today in this video and so much more, you can check out the Write at Home shop by visiting the link in the description bar below. So thank you guys once again. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Here's 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy, and you can always subscribe to my channel by clicking on my photo. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.